Understanding web services. We'll start off by talking a little bit about SOAP web services. Now, SOAP's been around for a really long time, and it can bridge protocols, application platforms, programming languages, and hardware architectures by allowing this SOAP envelope and SOAP response to typically transmit between these various areas. We use a SOAP protocol to define a message architecture in message formats. And SOAP itself stands for a Simple Object Access Protocol. One of the huge benefits of SOAP is that it's self-descriptive. It uses a WSDL, or Web Service Description Language, that can contain a lot of information about the calls available and the data in those SOAP services. The SOAP protocol is based on XML. SOAP envelope uses XML, so this is the envelope we'll typically use to transmit data out to a SOAP web service. It defines operations, arguments, data types, and more. So it's very verbose in describing what the SOAP service you're working with can do. It typically requires tooling to some degree to publish and consume to make your life a little easier. And it's usually handled over HTTP, but could potentially be exposed on a different protocol. SOAP requests are sent as the body of an HTTP post request. So as we'll see in REST, the HTTP methods oftentimes play a heavier hand than they do in SOAP, which oftentimes uses HTTP post exclusively. Here's an example of what a SOAP message might look like. You can see the namespace up top, the SOAP headers following that, and then also the SOAP body. In this case, it looks like we're calling a method where we get the stock price for some particular stock, in this case, FOOC. This SOAP envelope is going to be transmitted to the server behind the scenes. When received, a response would typically come back. Now, on the flip side of this, leaving SOAP behind for a moment, there is this new resurgence of web services that we'll typically call RESTful services. Now, these are the second generation of web services, and essentially what REST stands for is representational state transfer, an architectural style where clients and servers exchange representations of resources using a standardized HTTP protocol. The resources are acted upon by using a set of simple, well-defined operations. So these are things in the HTTP world, such as put, get, patch, post, delete, and so on. It's lightweight without a lot of extra XML markup. And it also is very human readable. So typically the information that you're going to get back from a RESTful service will be in JSON, which is extremely human readable, and XML as well, which is also, while oftentimes a little bit more verbose, possible for a human to read. It's easy to build, and typically no toolkits are necessary. But there are a lot of clients and frameworks out there that help with making REST calls. A human could go into even a web browser and intuitively call a REST service, typically much easier than they could for, say, a SOAP service. Data and resources are accessed using URIs, and those resources get manipulated using a fixed set of operations. So just to throw some examples out there, we'll focus on get and post. Typically, a GET request is a very safe request where you can go out and just get back information about the resource you're requesting. Whereas POST will typically point at some resource or potentially even a collection and imply that you want to create a new resource in the collection you're posting to. So intuitively, REST is once again going to use those HTTP architectural style, if you will, to determine how the operations and resources that you're pairing should function. As an example here in this screenshot, you can see I'm going out to a resource. Now in this case, I'm hitting it with a web browser, which most web browsers, when hitting enter in the URL bar, is going to send an HTTP GET request out to this resource. Essentially what I'm asking for, if you look towards the end of the URI, is I'm saying, give me the United flights for SFO. When I hit enter and the server receives the GET request with that URI, the server says, okay, let me compile all of the flights for SFO through United, packages up a JSON file, and then sends that back to my client, essentially saying, here are all of our SFO flights via United Airlines. So let's double click on this one and talk a little bit about the art of consuming these web services in our next section.